Asia Minor, the heartland. For centuries, the breadbasket and recruiting ground of the mighty Byzantine Empire. But by the late 11th century, this vital territory was largely lost, overrun by the relentless Seljuk Turks. The catastrophic defeat at Manzikert in 1071 was more than a battle lost. It was a wound that bled the empire close to death. Constantinople, the queen of cities, found itself a capital with a dwindling body. Our story begins with Alexios Komnenos, a man who ascended the throne in 1081 to find an empire in tatters. The treasury was empty, enemies pressed from all sides, Normans in the west, Pechenegs in the north, and the Seljuks dominating Asia Minor. Nicaea, a stone's throw across the Bosphorus, was the Seljuk capital. Imagine the emperor looking out from his palace, seeing enemy territory. Alexios was a master strategist and an even better diplomat. He knew Byzantium couldn't fight on all fronts alone. His controversial yet ingenious solution? Appealing to the West for aid. This, of course, morphed into the First Crusade. While the Crusaders had their own agendas, Alexios skillfully maneuvered them. He provided logistics, guided them, and crucially insisted they return conquered Byzantine cities to him. The early victories were significant. Nicaea was restored in 1097, a massive symbolic and strategic win. The Crusaders, with Byzantine support, pushed east, allowing Alexios to consolidate control over the western coastal regions of Asia Minor. But this wasn't a simple reconquest. Here's something often overlooked. Alexios didn't just rely on foreign swords, he fundamentally reformed the Byzantine military. He introduced the pronoia system on a wider scale, granting land revenues to soldiers in exchange for military service. This created a more loyal and localized defense force, crucial for holding recovered territories. He also re-emphasized discipline and training, rebuilding the army from the ground up. Think of it as a desperate feudal-like measure for a desperate time, tying land directly to service. Alexios's reign was a constant balancing act. He fought the Seljuks, yes, but also dealt with treacherous crusader princes and internal revolts. He secured the coastlines, vital for trade and communication, but the interior remained a dangerous frontier. He laid the foundation, plugging the dam, but the floodwaters of the Turkic migrations were powerful. Alexios' son, John II Komnenos, inherited a more stable yet still challenged empire in 1118. Known as John the Beautiful or Kaloyoannes, ironically perhaps for his rather plain appearance but more accurately for his beautiful soul and just rule. John was a soldier emperor through and through. He spent most of his reign on campaign, personally leading his troops. While Alexios focused on survival and securing the littoral, John aimed to push deeper, to truly reclaim the lost heartlands. His strategy was methodical siege warfare. He meticulously recaptured fortified cities one by one, cutting off Seljuk supply lines and re-establishing Byzantine authority. He retook Laodicea on the Lycus, the ancestral Komnenian stronghold of Kastamonu in Paphlagonia, and pushed the Danishmends, another powerful Turkic emirate, back. A fascinating aspect of John's rule was his personal character. Unlike many Byzantine emperors, he was known for his piety, moral integrity, and lack of extravagance. He actively discouraged courtly decadence and famously avoided grandiose triumphs after his victories. He was also renowned for his bravery, often fighting in the front ranks. Legend says he once had to be physically restrained by his Varangian guard from charging headlong into an enemy formation. This personal example inspired immense loyalty in his troops. John's campaigns were largely successful in the west and north of Asia Minor. He consolidated Byzantine control over the Meander Valley, a rich agricultural region, and even campaigned as far east as Cilicia and Syria, reasserting Byzantine suzerainty over Crusader states like Antioch. However, the vast Anatolian plateau, with its nomadic Turkic populations, remained difficult to fully subdue. He secured the frontiers but didn't fully eradicate the Seljuk presence from the interior. Tragically, John's promising reign was cut short by a hunting accident in 1143. A poisoned arrow grazed his hand. His focus on military matters and just governance had significantly strengthened the empire, setting the stage for his ambitious son. Manuel Komnenos, John's youngest son, was a complex and dazzling figure. Fluent in Latin, a devotee of Western chivalry, and a formidable warrior himself, Manuel dreamt big. He didn't just want to reclaim Asia Minor, he aimed to restore the Byzantine Empire to its former glory, a dominant power across the Mediterranean. Manuel's early reign saw continued success in Asia Minor, pushing the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum further inland. He refortified key cities and even launched audacious offensives, but his attention was often divided. He campaigned vigorously in the Balkans against the Hungarians, intervened in Italy against the Normans, and engaged in complex diplomacy with the Crusader states and Western powers. Here's a fascinating detail about Manuel's military. He was a great admirer of Western knightly culture and actively incorporated Western-style heavy cavalry and tournament practices into the Byzantine army. His forces were incredibly diverse, featuring not just native Byzantines, but also Pechenegs, Serbs, Hungarians, Western European mercenaries like French, German, and Italian knights, and even converted Turks. He attempted to create a truly international Roman army. He also personally participated in jousting tournaments, scandalizing some of the more conservative Byzantine courtiers. Manuel's grand ambition in Asia Minor culminated in his campaign of 1176. He assembled a massive army, intending to strike a decisive blow against the Seljuk Sultan Kilij Arslan II and capture his capital, Iconium, known today as Konya. This was to be the culmination of the Komnenian Reconquest. But it led to disaster. At the Battle of Myriokephalon, the Byzantine army, burdened by an enormous siege train, was ambushed in a narrow mountain pass. While not a total annihilation like Manzikert, it was a crushing strategic defeat. The precious siege engines were lost, and the psychological blow was immense. Manuel himself was said to have despaired, comparing it to Manzikert. While Myriokephalon didn't undo all the Komnenian gains, Byzantium remained a powerful force and still controlled vast swaths of Western Asia Minor. It marked a turning point. The dream of a full reconquest of the Anatolian interior began to fade. Manuel, though he continued to campaign, was forced onto a more defensive footing in the east. The initiative, so painstakingly won, began to slip. Manuel's death in 1180 marked the beginning of the end for the Komnenian Golden Age. A succession of weaker rulers, internal strife, and rising external pressures unraveled much of their hard-won progress. The disastrous Fourth Crusade in 1204 would deliver a blow from which the centralized Byzantine state would never fully recover. Yet, the Komnenian achievement in Asia Minor was remarkable. For nearly a century, these three emperors, Alexios the Survivor, John the Consolidator, and Manuel the Ambitious Gambler, halted the decline and dramatically reversed Byzantine fortunes in their most vital province. They reclaimed vast territories, rebuilt the army, and restored Byzantium as a major power. An often underappreciated success of the Komnenian era was the economic and demographic recovery of Western Asia Minor. The re-established security allowed for agriculture to flourish again, cities to be repopulated, and trade routes to reopen. Churches were rebuilt, and a semblance of Byzantine provincial life returned. This resurgence, though ultimately not permanent, demonstrates the potential that was almost realized. It wasn't just about military conquest, it was about rebuilding a society. The Komnenian Reconquest of Asia Minor is a story of incredible tenacity, brilliant leadership, and the enduring dream of a lost heartland. While the ultimate goal remained elusive, the efforts of the Komnenoi gave the Byzantine Empire another century of life and left an indelible mark on history. It begs the question, what if Myriokephalon had been a victory? What if Manuel's successors had been as capable? History is full of such tantalizing what-ifs. The eagles clawed back vast territories, but ultimately, the mountains and plains of Anatolia would prove too vast, the tide of history too strong. Yet, their struggle remains one of the most compelling episodes in the long, dramatic saga of the Byzantine Empire.